Okay, so just get started, I guess. Hi, my name is Charlotte Evans, and I went on the Washington, D.C. and New York trip last summer with my school, Horizon Christian School. I was going to make a really cute video and pretty much act like a super famous Instagram influencer and kind of blog about my trip and have cute videos and meet my friends. It did not go as planned. So the phone I had brought with me on the trip died, completely crashed, and I was not able to recover any of the videos or the photos that I had from the trip, but I still did learn a lot, and I can talk about what I saw and what I learned and answer the question that I did have originally. I just will not be able to show you the pictures and videos I had. So the question I was going to answer was, what is the cultural differences between the small town of White Salmon, Washington, which is where I'm from, versus the big cities of Washington, D.C. and New York City? So the day we flew from Portland, Oregon and ended in Washington, D.C., as we got there, we were right onto the tour bus and in Washington, D.C., and we just kind of went right on the tour. The first thing we did was go to the National Gallery of Art, and I went there with a couple girls and my teacher, and we had a cute little brunch there, and it was just crazy taking in all of the really big buildings that I'm not very used to, but it was so beautiful, like the architecture, that we were just sitting in a simple little cafe, but like the architecture and everything was marble. It was crazy. We walked through that museum for a while. We were taking pictures and we were going through reading all of the plaques right next to the paintings and reading the dates on them and how old the paintings were, and just like imagining how life would have been in that time, and honestly how long it would have taken to make those paintings, because they were like so detailed. And thinking about the resources that we have now but they didn't have was kind of crazy, because they really didn't have like the resources we have now that make things so easy and so quick. So the paintings that were up on the walls must have taken a very long time, and they were so detailed that it was easy to see how much effort someone would put into that and how they have lived on this long and are in a museum. Another thing that we did on the tour was go to the World War II Memorial, the Korean Veterans Memorial, and a couple other memorials, and those are really cool to see. And just like when we showed up there, it was kind of just like a moment of silence. Like everyone just kind of brought down the energy, not in a bad way, just in a respectful way, to like just honor those veterans and really see what like how many people lost their lives in those wars, and how in White Salmon, Washington, we don't have many memorials like that I can think of, in my small town at least, where we can go and take a moment of silence and look at all like the people that died and see their names. And even the architecture that was chosen to honor them is so like highly respectful, and just was jaw-dropping to see how much like effort was put into it. A big cultural difference I found in Washington, D.C. was, well, there was a lot more people walking around, but even the clothes that people were wearing and just their like energy of like getting things done, like anyone walking on the street that obviously lived there was not in a rush necessarily, but they were determined to go somewhere. They were determined, they had a plan, they knew what they were doing. While here it's kind of like I guess here it's not as rushed, and the clothes people wear are not as, I don't know, I guess you say ironed. Everyone looked very put together, and like their clothes were all ironed, and like the men were wearing suits and ties, and like it was blazing hot there too. It was blazing hot, but they were still walking around in these suits and these jackets and these black pants and these leather shoes. And the women were all like, majority of them were very like sharp looking, I guess you could say, and they were just like the men, determined to get somewhere. Like they all had a plan, they all had things to do. While seeing tourists there, you could pretty easily tell them apart from other people, because they were taking pictures, and like I know in my group we were squealing a lot because we were like, oh my gosh, it's so cool, like being obvious that we were not from there. And so we saw other people like that too, and it was just fun to see that. One thing I did notice in Washington, D.C. was that being around more historical monuments made me more aware that like the history was like true and like it's not just a story, because being in a history class, what we're learning can be so crazy and so like out of this world almost feeling, like even just like the rocket launch or certain wars and certain like stories of wars that just sound so like made up. But being around those historical monuments and like going to the Lincoln Memorial specifically and reading his speeches on those walls was really cool to see, because it kind of opened my eyes to being like, yeah, this is not just a story, like this history is real and it did happen, and that's why our country is the way that it is, and it's not just in a history book that we have to take a test on. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, of just it at the Lincoln Memorial, again specifically, it's a statue of him, even though it's very unrealistically large, but it was a statue of him, and it was like you're literally like standing in his presence almost. That is what he looked like. That is how he presented himself. And even though the statue is unrealistically large, that was the energy he gave to people. That was the feeling that they had when they were around him. Not like big and overwhelming, but just like powerful, and he was there for a reason, and like he got things done, and like standing in that memorial was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Moving on to New York City, that was also a huge cultural shock. Seeing the people walking around, their different fashion, their different styles, sometimes the way that they smelled. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But that's anywhere. But the buildings were crazy and the traffic was insane, and walking everywhere was really fun. The history in New York versus Washington, D.C., like historical monuments were not as available to people as it was in Washington, D.C. A lot of them were free and you could just walk right up to them, while in New York, we went to the Statue of Liberty, but you had to get tickets to go onto that island, and you could not go inside of the Statue of Liberty, but you could walk around it, which was really cool. There was a museum there, but yeah, it's a little bit different the way it's set up. The nightlife in New York was really crazy. There's so many people out. Like, it feels like daytime because there's so many people running around doing things. There's so many shops. Times Square is where we kind of went at night, and it was just like there was wall to wall people, wall to wall. Like, it was kind of scary. Me and one girl, we stayed together the whole time, and we held hands running through the crowds because we did not want to lose each other, and that was a little bit scary, but we were okay. There was a Krispy Kreme that was open, there was a Sephora that was open, there was the M&M store and the Hershey store and the candy store and all these like fashion places, and not even inside the stores, like people walking around on the street and doing shows and that you could pay for and taking pictures. Like, even when it's like 11 p.m., I don't think many of us felt very tired because there was so much energy going through the air that it's like, in New York, the buildings were really tall, and I can describe them as much as I can, but one memory I have of our tour guide telling us that the older buildings, they have these designs on them, and the farther up that the designs and the architecture like kind of like swoops and like has more intricate details to it, the higher it goes up, the more expensive that building was, and like the wealthier person owned those buildings because they could pay for those designs farther up the building, and that's why it like stops at some layers and just like is a normal or like a flatter, simpler building from that layer up. But I thought like that was a really cool fact that stood out to me for architectural reasons. And again, I wish I could show pictures because I took so many pictures and videos of all the different things we got to see, but I just, it was so crazy to see. I wasn't able to keep those photos, which was really disappointing.